So as the title says, I'm a little worried about Caris Levert and if he can hit his ceiling either just with the Nets or in general. I mean, I think his fit with this Nets team is going to be interesting when we're eventually playing again. And I also believe the injury stuff is interesting. Now, this season was weird with his injury because it was a thumb. It's not related to his foot and his lower body injuries that he's had throughout his career. But he has still had a lot of lower body stuff. I mean, the foot injuries that he had were the reason he fell in the draft, right? And he's had a series of lower body injuries since then. I mean, the loudest one was, of course, last season when he was doing really well for the Nets and seemed like he was coming into his own as their go-to scorer. And then he had that really bad-looking injury, and, you know, we can say that had nothing to do with the foot injury, but I just kind of feel like it does. I mean, we've seen before where, you know, Kyrie Irving is a good example. He had a really bad foot injury at Duke, and he's had lower body problems pretty much since, you know. He's had other things too. But, you know, your body, it's all working in one thing. So if you got to compensate for one thing, then it can open up an injury somewhere else, right? We've seen this, you know, of course, Derrick Rose is another one. But then we've also had examples of guys getting hurt a few times and then it bounces back the other way. You know, Steph Curry got his ankles under control. Bradley Beal hasn't had any injuries in a while. So I guess I'm just asking, which way is it going to go with Caris Levert? Are the early foot problems going to plague him for the rest of his career? Or is it going to be pretty okay moving forward? We don't really know. Again, he did get hurt this year, but it was a thumb thing, so that's just whatever. So maybe this would have been the year he could have shown that off. And of course, we did just see him drop, what was it, 40 or 50 against the Celtics in that crazy overtime where the Celtics somehow lost that game. I still don't know how, even with all the injuries that they suffered in like 5 minutes. But yeah, that's the first thing with my fears with Levert, is just the injuries and where he goes from here. But next is his fit with this Brooklyn Nets team, because I kind of fear that he's going to get lost in the background once Kevin Durant comes back. And to be fair, I mean, if KD and Kyrie are on the same team, then yeah, certain guys need to take a back seat. But it'll just be kind of disappointing if Caris Levert is just this 16, 17 a game guy for the Nets, playing next to Kyrie and Kevin Durant, because I think he can be a 20-plus point scorer and can be, I don't know, like maybe he can be the second best player on a title team. Potentially. I mean, he's not really going to have the opportunity to show that if he's on this team, I think. Now, granted, this Nets team might just have so many injuries between Kyrie, and we don't know what KD is going to be like when he comes back, to where Levert may be forced into that role anyway, but it's still not the best thing, right? If you were just focused on seeing how good of a player Caris Levert can possibly become. Now, the way to offset this all is if he's just an awesome three-point shooter, and okay, 5 threes a game at 38% this season in 39 games. His career overall, it's not as good, but that's like the hope. But I mean, that would require him to alter a bit of his game, because he's more of a go off the dribble, you know, give me the ball and let me work kind of guy. And I do think he's got more potential as a playmaker. So it's like, is he able to do that? Is he willing to do all that? Is he willing to do it, but it'll take too long for him to get to that point of, you know, being more of an off-ball guy and attempting like 9 threes a game or whatever, which is what I think it would kind of require for him. I don't know. And again, I do fear that he would just kind of get forced into the corner for this Nets team. I think another reason I believe that is because with Kenny Atkinson no longer being here, at this point, who that actually controls the basketball for this Nets team understands how good Caris Levert can be. Because with Kyrie and KD, I mean, those two, they're going to be doing their thing. And sure, they probably respect Levert as a player, but I don't think they're going to view him as the number 3 guy who can give them 20-something points a game or whatever. They're just going to view him as a dude who can do stuff off of those two. I think Dinwiddie's interesting here as well, because it seems like whenever Kyrie is out of the picture, or was this season, which is for most of the year to be fair, it seemed like Dinwiddie kind of took the reins as the main guy on the team, whereas Levert was playing off of him. Now, even when I say that, in their last 15 games, Levert, he averaged more points than Dinwiddie, and he had basically the same amount of touches as well as time of possession. So, in that sense, my worries are probably not as big, but that was also with just Dinwiddie. You know what I mean? So when you throw Kyrie and Kevin Durant into that mix, that's what I think pushes Levert down, and I just feel like, based on what we've seen from Dinwiddie up to this point, I feel like he'd be more up for being the third guy in that mix, also because he's more of a ball handler. I think that helps him out too. Not to say that Levert can't dribble, but, Levert's more of like a dude who makes a play on the wing. Dinwiddie's a point guard. I guess if I were to look at another version of this happening in the league right now, it would kind of be like Markkanen on the Bulls, talented young player who we know can put up points, and he just kind of gets pushed to the side for whatever reason. And I just kind of fear that might happen with Caris Levert as well. If I was going to think of a second example of it, it's kind of like what happened with the Celtics last year. I mean, I know Kyrie is the common thing here, but I don't want to blame Kyrie. Like, there were a lot of people, and guys like Tatum and Jalen, they just weren't going to get as many shots. It's the way it was, right? And yeah, again, Caris, same situation potentially. He also could be totally fine because he's a talented player and that type of stuff. I think who ends up being the Nets coach is going to be very interesting in all this as well, but I do still just have this fear in the back of my head that we're always going to be like, man, what if Caris was on a different team? Like, what if he was on the one team that I always reference when it comes to perimeter scorers, the Magic, and they were just like, all right, Caris, go do your thing, and we're going to play off of you. I feel like he could, be a 20-plus point guy and do all that type of stuff. So, who knows where that all leads to? And again, he could be totally fine. So, yeah.